what I think about the right is an invitation to just lean into his goodness and say, all right, Lord, I don't know why this is happening. And typically, I try to be right when there's a problem, when there's a challenge, when there's a trial, tribulation, trouble, whatever T you want to throw in there. It's like, that's when I need to be right because I can't be wrong. And instead, what I've learned to do is just adopt it as his goodness.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my interpretation. Instead of being right, I just want to see his goodness revealed in it. And I think that his goodness is, mostly revealed in and through his love, and how we can be agents of that to others.
Welcome to the Deep End Podcast with Dave and Jen.
Today's episode is with our good friend Johnatan Romero, Reverend Romes. Let's listen to him as he talks about why you don't always have to be right.
Let's dive in. Well, welcome to the Deep End. We're back with my man, Johnatan Romero.
Romes,
yeah. Wait, what no, Rev Rome.
Oh, Reverend Romero.
Reverend Romero.
Yeah, who gave you that?
That's a Jen
I
special
think
right
I
there.
said that one time on the prayer call.
Romes is a nickname that transferred from college that somehow ended up in my professional world, and it was just really unexpected. I thought, I worked at a different place for not a mortgage place. I was in a staffing company for 3 years before I came to Movement, and it was like weaning out. It was just in this inner circle of my college buddies.
Wait, they were calling you Johnatan at this other job?
Yeah, I was now Johnatan. And then I showed up at Movement, and Jeff's like, "Hey, I'm bringing this guy Romes in," and Casey's like, "Romes," and that's, so I'm Romes again, and so there was definitely that overlap, and I love it.
I love
That's
it.
a great
it fits
nickname,
you.
dude.
Yeah, it fits you.
It's classy.
Rev Romes reminds me of Rev Run.
Yeah, I
Run
know
DMC.
exactly.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, but you got the Rev. That's all. That hasn't always been with it. Has it?
Where did that come in?
Actually, that's a good point. My college buddies would laugh really hard if you threw a Rev in front of that, because that was not who I represented at all.
Yeah.
Wow.
But now that's sticking.
Yeah.
That's
well, praise God, man. Yeah, he's always after us, man. He's always after us.
No doubt, no doubt. And you're now pretty bold in that part of your life, speaking out for the Lord. When you say,
oh, yeah, man. I just think it's such good news. It's such good news, and when we, I always like to say, I like to just talk about his goodness all the time, and he's better today than he was yesterday, and that's because we get to experience him in new ways every day. But yeah, I kind of grew up. My grandfather was a pastor, and so
there's a Rev in there somewhere.
They're the roots. Grew up in church and very traditional, faith background, but grew up and went to college, and I think that's where I started really, figuring out what my faith journey looked like, and started questioning my faith journey a little bit, and saying, I just love everybody. I've always loved people. That's never been difficult for me.
Yeah.
And I just found that the more and more diverse my circle became, the more I loved on them. I was like, well, why do I think that I'm just right? And so I started to really question my faith. And I have a really near and dear spiritual mama from back home, and their family played such a role in my life just growing up. And I remember being in college, and she reminded me not too long ago of this conversation that we had, that where I was like, I just don't know if this is it. Like, I mean, why are they wrong? Or
Sure.
why are these other walks of faith why are they wrong, essentially, is kind of the question that I posed. And I just remember her response, and she just very graciously said, you know what, just sit with the Lord on that, and just sit with him, and and trust me, you'll find out. Like he'll reveal it to you.
Yeah.
She didn't try to convince me or like, hey, wait a minute, and I just feel like that, Jesus is like that too. There's always this open door policy. He's like, I am so good that if you don't believe it, go out there.
Yeah,
Dude, hey, that's fine. And it's Romans 8 or it's Romans 5 maybe. It's like it's kindness that leads us to repentance.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
So I've just always felt that with the Lord and loving people and wanting to, invite others into this reality of how good He is.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
So, but I had to grow into that. I definitely went out there and was like, let me test, the limits of these boundaries.
Yeah.
And, oh man, had my fair share of consequences as a result.
Sure, yeah, I've been there.
And so, but yeah.
Was there
just
a
come to it.
specific moment where you feel like it flipped for you? Or was it like a gradual?
Yeah, good question. I think that one of those moments I think was really around how I ended up coming to movement, honestly, because I'd graduated college and I was still running around crazy, and and my life revolved around trying to be successful, fresh out of school, and then spending all my money partying and really not having this, really not operating in great wisdom, obviously. And so, but I found that the Lord was just like pursuing me, and I could just feel that like I needed to get things right in my life because I was starting to see the wheels falling off. And so one of the ways that the Lord did that was he showed me the difference between what success looked like at the place I was working at the time, because that was a lucrative opportunity, just like mortgage lending is. But the success that I would see there was very, it was still superficial in so many ways. Of it met all the world's standards for success, but I did not see peace. I didn't see joy. And I didn't see people like walking around with like wholeness and being healthy, full humans,
purposeful,
Yeah. And so, Jeff had been talking to me about this place that Jeff Brown had been talking to me about. He did my loan. I was 1 year out of college, and he was my loan officer, and then talked me into this crazy business.
Wait, what year was this?
This was 2000, and he did my loan in 2007, and I joined Movement in 2009.
So you were one of the official first.
I was one of the first ones, here in Charlotte. Like I remember when Amay would come in once a week with her little sister, and they would, do our paperwork and expenses.
Amay's little sister. Who are we talking about there?
Nicole,
Nicole's her sister used to work here
that's
too.
funny.
And they would, they would do all the paperwork
payroll
and
HR and everything.
Make sure I got paid, and it was
good.
Once a week we'd see them, and that was it. But it's a nice little key man office here in Ballantyne. But Jeff said, "Look, let me tell you about this opportunity." And so anyway, I sat down and we went to lunch, and Casey started just casting this vision for what Movement would become. And I mean, this was a total startup at the time. Like there was nothing. And but he just said, this is what we want to be remembered for. This is the legacy we want to leave. We want to give more than we extract, and we want to be a light in the darkness. And he started using these terms, and I was like, man, all right, Lord, what are you doing? And so I found myself, really, really wanting to be a part of something that was bigger than me. I joined Movement, and everything's going fine. And I actually went through and finished my first full year in the business as a loan officer. And I was out celebrating December 23rd, 2010, and I get pulled over after celebrating. Now, I celebrated with a lot of tequila shots back then. So, I get pulled over and get a DWI and have to, go through all the consequences of that. And my goal with that DWI was just to get in the courthouse and out of it and start dealing with all these consequences as quickly as possible and put it behind me, because I didn't want anybody to know, because I started this brand new, job as a loan officer, and I wanted to be trusted by everyone and have that credibility. And, here I am showing up to court. And, but my court date kept getting delayed, like every month. I'm like, delayed. So by June, I still hadn't gone to court. And I remember there's a nonprofit organization that I'd gotten nominated to become. It was like the Charlatan of the Year award. Wow. And meanwhile, I've got this cloud of just hanging. I'm like, if you only knew, if you only knew. And but here I am, Charlatan of the Year award. My business is doing great. It's thriving in a really down. I mean, it's 2011, right? And it was just incredible. I would say professional, like in the professional realm, I was on a peak. Personally, I was in a valley, and I remember walking into Casey's office. It was like a middle of the year. It was like June, end of the month. I think we just wrapped up, and it was a great month. And I went in there because I was going to tell him about the Charlatan of the Year award. And I wanted to say, man, I want you to come to the banquet and it's going to be great and all that stuff. And I got in there. And as soon as I just started like trying to tell him about it, I was like, man, no, here's what's really going on. I've got this cloud over my head. I haven't told anyone. I thought I'd be in and out of this courtroom and just be dealing with it, and I could keep it under the rug, but this thing's eating me alive, and I just don't know what's going on. And I just, I don't know how or why, but I just that's what happened. And the first thing Casey said to me, he goes, man, thank you for telling me that. He said, thank you for telling me that, because I can't wait to see how the Lord's going to turn this around in your life. And we get, and now I get to be a part of the story. I get to be a part of seeing how he turns this around for your good. And that's just not what was flowing through my mind at all during those first 6 months.
You probably had a lot of shame flowing through your mind.
I did.
A lot of brokenness and shame.
And every month it got worse and worse and worse, right? Because I just try to keep
Which is funny, because I'll pause you real fast, but one thing you said was when you were at that first job, you didn't see this peace, joy, and fullness. And I wrote down that those are characteristics of God. Yeah. And it's funny, as you got that DWI, you were only moving further and further from that presence of peace, joy, and fullness, even though from the outside looking in, it looks like you are fully immersed in this peace, joy, and fullness, because you got the job that's killing it and things of that nature. But then realistically, it was like, man, you were straight broken, shameful, hurting man.
Yeah. And, I remember that day because it was the first time I had really kind of heard the difference between conviction and condemnation. Mm-hmm. And Casey just said, hey, this is what it feels like when you feel, the conviction from the Holy Spirit. And these are the voices that you're going to hear when you feel condemnation. Yeah. And there's a difference. Yeah. And that was really impactful in my journey. And so he said, first thing you got to do is find 5 people who love you and tell them what's going on. And I did that. And anyway, long story short, it was an incredible blessing. And that year has marked me for life, because it was a year that I spent in trying to hide my, all of the things that were going wrong in my life, but at the same time experiencing God's provision and his grace and his blessings, all the while that I had that, dark cloud hanging over my head. And then finally lifting that cloud when you just, bring it to the light. And I started to get it in community with people who loved me and were able to rally around me and just, shower me with their love. So it was.
Think of that importance though of, I always have this thing, man. When I graduated college, I was in part of this, student ministry. There's tons of people in there. It's like you couldn't take a step without somebody knowing you took a step. You know what I mean? Like you couldn't do anything in that college. So it was really easy to live like this life on life walk that Jesus did with his disciples when you're in college. And then I graduated college, and it was like, man, ain't nobody doing that, And it's actually it's a really vulnerable place to be as a human being. But as you move into a space where you can share those things, just, you were literally dealing with all the shame and things like that of a DWI or whatnot, just to be able to share that, how beneficial that was for your soul, how that launched you into, so much more purpose, of who you are as a man of God, as a father, a husband, as a coworker. Like it sets you free to do what you were actually meant to do. But it all started in a space where you felt the place to, like, you know what, actually, here's what's happening. And it's so important because I walk by so many people that it's like, I don't know, does that person have a person where they're actually able to be
enough.
who they are and say what's going on, and how beneficial that is for us as human beings. It launches us into incredible purposes that God's got for us.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, absolutely, man. I think that there is this powerful connection between the mind and the heart and these 18 inches, man. They call it the 18-inch journey, right? And it's like there is this, it's so easy to get disaligned. It's so easy to get disjointed. And they say that it is when we're walking with a lack of authenticity,
Sure.
that's really where that disjointing comes into play. And so, I think about people who really you just know who they are. Like they're the good, the bad, or indifferent, and they walk in this true. Like authenticity is truth, right?
Yeah.
And so when they can hold nothing back, then they're able to walk in this true authenticity, which really connects the heart and the mind. And when you're doing that, we hear stories about just how the brain opens up, how you become a more effective person and more purposeful, but really like practical. I mean, there's certainly spiritual implications, but it's got very practical
for sure.
application as well when you break it down.
No doubt. Man, I got to ask this. I'm super curious. Before we came in here in this room, and I always like to prepare something.
Yeah.
It's just something. I'm usually not a guy who prepares. Yeah, I'm usually not a guy who prepares much at all. But I was like, all right, Lord, what should we talk about? What's the word for Rome's? And the word that Lord, it was like a bullet that came in my head. It was inspired. And that was like the word that I saw all over you, that the Lord put over you. But I'm curious as to when you hear that word, what are things that come to your heart and your mind when you hear inspired?
Wow. Yeah. Oh, man.
Like, why would God say that?
Why would God say that?
Yeah.
Where did that come
I
from?
received that. Oh, man. Inspired. I think that I think that this place, I know that we just sling mortgages, right? Like, I mean, it's really that's what we do. But
we're good at it.
We're good at it, right? And there's different ecosystems under that umbrella, but I think that the heart behind what this place is that it's a place that is not using people to build the dream, but it's using the dream to build people. And when you hear our founders speak and our leaders speak around the culture inside of movement and really where it all came from and back, just talking those really early days, it was so that people's lives would be changed because they were here.
Yeah.
And when you look around and you see people whose lives have been tangibly impacted, and the needle has moved. You know, I am a better son. I'm a better father. I'm a better husband. I'm a better brother because of the community that I'm in, and so it inspires me. And I think that that's the story of the gospel, that Jesus just comes and says, "Hey, this is how to be pretty good at life." And when you get around other people who have that as a core, guiding principle, or as a world vision to say, like, this is how you get pretty good at life, and you're naturally inspired because you see people having tangible life change and impact. And so I think that in my heart, I want to see other people grow and become the best versions that they can be of themselves, and feel inspired inside of this community every day.
Yeah.
Yes, that's so good.
I think I see something in you. I mean, every time I do see you floating around, like, you're floating around with a pretty high amount of joy. You know, I mean, and I'm like, golly, what's going on with that guy? Like, he's having a great day today, you know? It's not true. Like, Rome's always walking around with a lot of joy. But I think
Peace too, I would say.
who, what?
Peace.
Oh yeah, for sure, peace. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely peace.
That's what I would say.
But I definitely see that radiating from you. But also, you haven't always. I mean, maybe you have, but I feel like I've seen a little bit of your journey where you've started to really experience God on a deeper level that has driven you to, how do I put it, like, reflect more of God's love, or lean into opportunities and conversations more. Would you say that's true for you? Or
Yeah.
what's that journey look like?
You know, I think absolutely. I think it started around the pandemic. Honestly, I think that, coming back to this concept of love, the Lord began to challenge me personally on my limits on love, and I think that that season of the pandemic that we found ourselves, not just in our country, but, at a global scale, this division and animosity, and just like this isolation, for sure, this, friction, you just saw people standing in different camps, and it was just like divide. And the Lord, the Ephesians 2 of just like, he's the Father of all, he's like everyone on earth derives their name from him, right? He's the Father of all. He's a great creator. And here we are as his sons and daughters, and we're all like just in different camps. And I was like, but Lord, but this is right, and he's like, I didn't call you to be right,
That's good.
He's, what I felt actually was, the story of creation and the story of the fall, where they ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And he's like, eat from the tree of life. I've given you life so that you can experience more life, and you're eating from this tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And so when I was trying to, do the gymnastics in my head of like, what does that mean, Lord? He just called me into deeper and deeper encounters with his love. And he's like, unconditional. That word means something.
Yeah.
Look it up, And I'm like, but wait, but what about, and I started finding all of these pockets where the Lord was essentially flipping tables in my heart and saying, like, yeah, this is, there's a limit for your love here. There's a limit for your love there. And it wasn't that I didn't want to love, because again, I've always been a lover of people. It was that I wanted to be right. And when I removed the need to be right, it just opened the door for deeper encounters
Right.
with his love with others.
Yeah.
And as I began to have real tangible encounters with the Lord in those moments, he was I just felt like this hand of affirmation of like, yeah, this is good. This
That's
is
some
good.
inspiration, didn't you?
This is, I felt some inspiration.
That's where it started welling up in you.
Yeah, that's
Wait,
right.
I have a question. How
Yeah.
did you remove the need to be right?
Well, that's a really good question. And
Because I'm curious, because I feel like that's something I need to be doing.
Jen's like, I always like being right.
yeah,
I'm like, wait. I'm sure it's not like a step 1, 2, 3.
right.
but
Yeah. Well, a good example of that is like, we study scripture and we see contradictions in scripture even then, right?
Yep.
It's like we see these things where like, Jesus says like, I am the peace and you won't know any other peace like mine. I'm going to give you peace and I don't give you peace like the world gives peace. Like I am peace. And then he tells his disciples like, hey, go bless them. If you don't feel peace there, shake off your sandals and walk
Get
on
out
out,
of
And, and I'm sure there's some others, but like there's just, there's these areas of our lives where we try to fit right we try to figure out the circumstances and then put it into a box of right and wrong. And I think there's real freedom in just saying, Lord, what do you want?
Yeah.
And, and just inviting him into these conversations and the circumstances.
Yeah.
And really, that requires, I've never really understood surrender quite like I did until I started getting rid of needing to be right. Because the amount of surrender required for that is that'll, it'll awaken real faith inside of you because you're like, all right, Lord, I don't want to be wrong. And then he's like, look, how, trust me, right? He's like, trust me.
Yeah. Woo.
And so another one of my
Big one, Jen.
mentors, he told me one of the things he did, and I'm like, okay, well, if you do, I was inspired. He does this, I'm like, I'm going to do it. He's like, before I wake up every morning and before my feet hit the ground, I say, Lord, my answer is yes. My answer is yes. I don't know the question. I don't know what you've got for me today. I don't know where you're leading me to or with who or wherever, but I just want you to know you've got my yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so
that
that's
takes
really
you
good. Number
Yeah.
one. And if you guys are watching, you probably notice like I'm taking notes. I feel like I'm at church.
Oh,
And now you know. Now you know why I called him Rev
Rones.
Rones, because I feel like everything you say is just like, you can just tell that you live your life very in tune and aligned with Jesus. And I will say, as I'm just sitting here with you guys listening, and you guys that maybe don't know Borelli or Rome's, the words the Titans of Faith like came into my mind, and I just was like, how am I even like sitting at the same table as you two? Number one, but number two, like it just kind of like you said earlier about the community piece, like it's like get people in your life that are following the Lord, that are living life aligned with him, because it then allows you to learn from them. So I'm literally like writing down everything that he's saying, and I really think too, like you emulate quiet strength to me. Like those were the words that I feel like God kind of put on my heart for you, because I think you are not only one of the most humble people that I know, but you're also the most like faithful.
Oh, wow.
And that's like huge. Like that's very rare. And I feel like it's a gift, obviously, that God has given you because you have practiced and walked it out and trusted him on a totally different level that I don't even know like what that looks like. But it's inspiring to me. And I also wanted to say too, before we like move on.
I'm not moving on. I got something else.
Okay, yeah, you probably do too. I have multiple things, but so I don't know if I've told you this, but I feel like you are one of the reasons why I'm at Movement.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
There we go.
So
Inspiration.
I've known Rome's for
First
a really
and
long
fourth.
time. Yeah, inspiration. He is a good friend of my brother-in-law. But like I knew him before my
Yeah.
sister was married to her husband.
Got a long
now.
Eastman connection.
Long Eastman connection. So he's kind of been a friend. And I remember like back in the day, again, probably when you first started at Movement, you would just like talk about it all the time and like love it so much, best job ever. Like, and I would be like, whoa, like a mortgage company. Like, what's so great about that? And I was like over here teaching preschool, like just totally different worlds. But I think because of the way that you spoke about it, and then you eventually told me like, hey, we hire people that like don't have any experience. And I remember I submitted my resume and I put at the top that your name, because we really used to only hire by like referral. Like you had to know somebody,
Or you had to
get
be
in.
related to somebody.
Yes, or you had to be a family member.
That was true.
But
There was like
I
7 of
remember,
my brothers here.
yeah, well, that too. There's lots of family connections at Movement. But I remember like putting that at the top of my resume, and not that like you're the reason I got hired, but you probably were part of the reason. But then fast forward to, obviously you saying Movement, being a part of the Movement community has made you a better person. I would say the same thing about myself. Like it has stretched me, challenged me, but also like blessed me in a way that not even like my own church community has done, which is such a testament to Casey and the fact that like he leads in a certain way to where it trickles down, and we do care for each other and we do support each other in a special way. But I really wanted to tell you guys something about Rome's that I feel like is maybe like you flying under the radar. But when my mom passed away, my dad like kind of lost it, for lack of a better term. And you already kind of were a friend of the family, but I feel like you have been one of the very few people in my dad's life that has been a consistent friend and support when a lot of other people were like, this is too hard. This situation, like he's not getting better. He's actually maybe getting worse. And we saw a lot of people just like fall away. And you really stepped up and have honestly pursued being a friend to him unlike anybody else in his life.
Oh.
And like, I know he feels that way, but like as a daughter and as like seeing him suffer, knowing that you were kind of praying and supporting has been just like one of the biggest encouragements.
Yeah.
But I'm sure a lot of people don't know that you also are like side like chaplain-ish, but we're also a really good friend to people that are really, really struggling, and that takes a lot to do that for people. So
Well,
kudos to you.
Well, thank you. It's so fun to be with Bob, if we can say his name.
Say his name.
All right, good.
I talk about him all the time.
good.
He knows
Okay.
this. Yeah.
This
So,
guy's always on the podcast.
And I'll say, my relationship with him is that he inspires me. And so it's so interesting because, when we interact with people who are in their greatest valleys in life, those are the people I want to learn from. Don't put me beside the guy that's got all the trophies and never has, a limp to show for it. I want to know from the guy that's walking with a limp. I want to hear your story. I want to hear, how you've, his story of perseverance and his walk with the Lord and his wrestle with the Lord. What I love about your dad is the wrestle with the Lord. And, these unbridled, really honest conversations like we have David having in the Psalms. And somehow he can draw back from these moments of presence, of gratitude, of thankfulness for times that the Lord's shown up in his life, and he just kind of turns the whole corner and says, "But still, Lord, you are here. But still, Lord, you are good." In the midst of those darkest places. So I learned more from him than any leadership book, anything that I've studied or podcasts. I just love being in community with him because my faith grows incredibly being around him. And I want to say too, I appreciate your words, but Jen, you are an inspiration to so many too. I remember when you first started. And man, I feel like you were a lot quieter then, and a little more reserved.
So quiet.
And just to see you come out of your shell and be an inspiration to so many others. You're a person who really carries culture, And that's one thing that, I've heard our leadership team and Casey even speak of is like, man, what's that one thing that keeps you up at night? I mean, we're in a rough market. Gosh, you talk about ebbs and flows in this business, you see them all the time. But he's like, what keeps you up at night? It's that the culture would die, right? That we wouldn't carry this culture. And so you have this incredible gift of carrying culture because you carry that presence. And that's so priceless. It's such an intangible gift that you really carry. And so,
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think we
honor
all three
that.
do that.
Yeah.
Personally, but actually, so really quick, and then I know you have a
Oh, you're
question.
good. Go ahead.
So kind of going into like the tangible, like you mentioned before we started that you have had lots of moments of like feeling God's tangible presence at movement. Do you have any specific stories around that? Any examples you want to share?
I it was kind of like along the lines of like letting go of being right. And, my faith was driven about wanting to know more and know more and know more about God. And there was this like light bulb or just kind of revelation moment of like, he's like, stop trying to get to know more about me. Come experience me.
Yeah.
And when you experience me, all this other stuff that you learn will start to make sense.
Yeah.
And that was, so my life's been marked by many of those moments, but one of those in particular was really early on in the movement days. David King, who was our marketing guy at the time, was going around doing these stories about people, just like staff, and so like they did a story on me. And at the time, my dad had been diagnosed with cancer. He was living out of state in New York and doing this very special program. They only had it in 3 hospitals in the world, and he was a part of this thing, and it was great. It was interesting, but it was a big sacrifice for our family. He was there. My mom was back in my hometown, and I was here in Charlotte. And so we just felt very, it was a weird dynamic because it felt like nobody had support. And all the while we're trying to support my dad, but he's, in the thick of this treatment and waiting for things to happen. Particularly his tumors were too large for them to actually do the treatment. So they were doing something to try to get his tumors smaller, which they eventually did. They thought that would take a year or 2. They did it in like 30 days.
Wow.
And then he was going to be on this transplant list for, who knows how many ever years. But as soon as one came around and it was a match, then it would all work out. Well, so he's there for the long haul. And we thought that would take another year or so. Well, they tell my story. It gets put out on a Friday morning, and I started getting emails from all of our employees, just like, I still remember Michelle Gersten sending me this email, and she, everybody just encouraging me, hey, I'm praying for your dad. I'm praying for your dad. Cause I was telling that whole story. That was the season we were in. And no lie, Monday morning at like 4:00 in the morning, I get a call from my family in New York, and they're like, hey, we just got a call from the hospital. And I was like, what does that mean? They're like, we got to rush to the hospital. They think they have a donor. And they, ended up being a match. And by God's grace, like this whole thing happened in just a matter of a few months, where it could have taken so many years. And I just remember that story, and that's starting to build my faith. And where I was like, wow, this community rallied around. We started to pray, and all of a sudden, like the doors swung open, and there was just this open heaven moment, So there's moments like that have really marked me, and experiencing the Lord, and so yeah, I've got a couple of others coming to mind that I could share on, but we'd be here all day.
Yeah.
That's great.
I'm curious. You talk about not having to be right, and I kind of just want to like elaborate on that a little bit more, because I think I know what you're putting down, but the way I've experienced, I guess you'd say. But I want you to kind of say, is this what you're talking about? But I like the whole aspect of like not having to be right. I think what happens sometimes too in our culture is when people try to like love one another, if there's a difference it's really hard to like continue to engage like each other in that sense. And what I've learned is like as I've stepped in that realm of like, okay, I don't have to be right in how like my beliefs, their beliefs, things like that. That's not what God's called me to do. Like God's called me just to be in their life and to serve them and to love them, whatever that looks like. And He'll take care of like the truth writing in their life, if you will.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's something that I've had to learn as I've experienced like a wide variety of different types of people, right?
Absolutely.
But I'm just curious, is that when you talk about like not having to be right, is that kind of the path you're going down in that sense of like what it looks like?
Yeah, I think the not having to be right was just more of also, well, definitely along those lines, and then actually more of just shining the light back on me of like all the things that I don't know.
Sure.
that we you take those moments of like when you encounter somebody and they're just very cross with you, very prickly or negative or
Prickly.
I don't whatever that
Sandpaper
people.
I'm probably
might,
prickly.
you might experience somebody and and then we make a judgment about that person.
Yeah, sure.
And then you come to find out, well, they just had a flat tire on the
Sure.
rainy day on their way to work, and they're just so. I think that it's being. What I think about the right is an invitation to just lean into His goodness.
Yeah.
And say, all right, Lord, I don't know why this is happening. And typically, I try to be right when there's a problem, when there's a challenge, when there's a trial, tribulation, trouble, whatever T you want to throw in there. It's like, that's when I need to be right because I can't be wrong. And instead, what I've learned to do is just adopt it as His goodness.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my interpretation. Instead of being right, I just want to see His goodness revealed in it, and I think that His goodness is, mostly revealed in and through His love, and how we can be agents of that to others.
Yeah. So there's a deep sense of trust and freedom in that.
Yeah.
Right. And I would label that as wisdom. Right. I mean, like there's opportunities to maybe speak what is right, and then there's also opportunities when you just like trust the Lord is like working in that person's life for the timing which He's working.
Yeah.
And like the wisdom says, maybe don't move right now. Maybe you don't have to like hammer that point in right now. Maybe you just sit there in that moment and just ask Him, well, tell me more about that.
Right.
How do you feel? And just let the Lord lead their hearts in that sense. But it was interesting too, because like, I kept hearing this word for you, which is wise. And I think there's some truth to that in the sense of like wisdom, is knowing when to use the knowledge, if you will. And there takes a lot of patience in that.
When to apply it.
It takes a lot of patience and trust in
Yeah.
that space, right?
There's so many different circumstances, and in one of those where you're maybe communicating with somebody and it's like the opportunity is to be right, or you clearly have a disconnect with somebody else, and I'm standing in my position as being right. What we're looking at might seem like darkness, so it might be like, well, that's wrong. That's not right. Like I can clearly tell you that ain't nothing good about that, right? And so we say that that's wrong.
Yeah.
But I think if we just relabel it as dark, then we are light, And so I think the Lord just kind of has this beautiful way of inviting us into dark spaces where He's like, hey, don't worry. Like when you show up, darkness must flee. Where you go, my light goes. Where you go, my light shines. And so if you're entering into this conversation and you feel this wrong, then it's not wrong to where I need to attack it. It's dark to where I need to light it up.
Yeah.
I need to raise its value. I need to raise the value of that person even.
Yeah, bring them back into purpose.
Yeah,
Bring 'em back into presence.
that looks like dignity, that looks like love, that looks like honor, that looks like
Respect.
valuing, respecting that person and saying, man, in the midst of you trying to bury me with your darkness, you can't, because my light, darkness is not
Can't
an
comprehend
entity in and of itself, right? It's just the absence of light. And so there's this confidence that the Lord gives us. And, if we believe what the good book says, it's like when when you step in, like darkness disappears. And so it's a calling for us to know and step into those moments of darkness where we might call them wrong and just say, you know what, I'm here. Let's bring the light switch on.
Yeah,
Okay, can I say something?
you
about
may,
that?
Jen. Yeah, you may go for it.
So
look
I
at
have
that.
I have a light bulb
Light bulb.
tattoo.
Yeah.
There you go.
And
Bring the light.
I know. And so I got it. And actually, Kirsten rigged in at the time.
Yeah.
I was telling her I was going to go get this tattoo, and the idea behind, and I love tattoos, by the way. The idea behind it is when you walk into a dark room, all you have to do is turn the light on, and the darkness has no choice. It's just gone.
Yeah.
Because the power of light over darkness. And so I was telling her that I was going to get this tattoo for that reason, and we went and got tattoos
Love it.
together, matching tattoos. But it's the same thing. Like we need to be reminded, and I wrote it down. God sends us to dark places to bring the light. And I just got back from Uganda, and there's a lot of darkness there. There's a lot of there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of suffering. But I feel like when we're literally walking the streets of the slums where there's just a lot of grief and trauma, I don't feel any of that. I feel God's joy, God's peace, God's protection, God's provision. When instead you would maybe think when you're walking in those places, it would feel dark and it would feel heavy and it would feel overwhelming. But every time I walk where he's called me to walk, specifically in those extra hard places, I feel like he just shows up even more so that way.
Yeah.
And it's really beautiful to see. So thank you for sharing
Yeah.
that. I think it's an important thing for us to remember as believers, like any situation
Yeah.
we walk into, we are called to be the light.
Well,
in that
Matthew
situation.
5:14, Jesus literally says, "You are the light."
Yeah.
And again, I love it because he doesn't like challenge you to be the light. He doesn't say like you might be the light or like, hey, if you do this, you could be the light. He's like, no, you are
just
the light.
are.
Yeah.
Like you are the light. And there's like, sorry, bro, that's you.
Right.
It's like it is so imprinted on you that you got no other choice. So you can't hide a city on a hill.
Yeah.
Like it's there.
Yep.
So step into it. And I think of those story that comes to mind in the Bible is when the woman was brought before Jesus, and all the religious leaders were like, "Hey, Moses' law says we need to stone this woman." And Jesus is like, "All right, time to be the light." Like but like he does it so graciously.
Yeah.
Like it's that whole aspect of not having to be right. Like Jesus was 100% right. And there was darkness standing in front of him on every level, actually, because the woman herself was actually in sin, and then those men were like, "Just man, I want to, stone this woman," and Jesus is like, "Golly,
Yeah.
but there is no right in this right now," But the way he graciously, patiently applied the love of the Lord into that space and illuminated everyone's heart in one moment, it was like. And just started walking away, and then there's the woman standing left standing there, and Jesus is like, "Hey, who's going to stone you?" She's like, looking around, like, "Ain't nobody around." He's like, "Okay, now great,
Yeah.
go and sin no more." And just the beautiful, like, confidence that Jesus displayed in that moment of he could have ripped everybody in that moment if he wanted to, but yet he was so patiently, graciously illuminating everybody's heart.
Right. Yeah. Oh man, that's so good. Because if I'm that woman, I walk away inspired. You know, I'm like, wait a minute, I just got spared, and I think what Jesus does so beautifully is that he changed the world at 3 miles per hour, right? Like he was just like
Maybe
it's
3.
crazy.
Slow.
But everyone that encountered him, their value rose. They felt like I'm more valuable than I'm telling myself. I'm more worthy than what I'm leading myself to believe. I'm buying this lie that I'm not worthy of, or I'm not created in his image. I'm buying this lie that I can't do this, or I'm just going to succumb to these behaviors that are going to keep me, in this lower version of myself. And he's like, no, don't do that. Step up, become a better version of you. You were made for more.
Yeah. So you're walking out, I would say, you're walking out a lot of purpose in your life. I mean, I think you do a great job of stepping into opportunities, just stepping into presence and bringing that presence and power to every conversation. I mean, we've had conversations, and I know how you love people very differently, even the people that, work for you and things of that nature, the people you serve, you love in a different way, in a way that the Bible calls us to love, in the way that Jesus loved. But my question to you is, for Reverend Romes, you get to the end, you look back. What does a life well lived look like for you?
Oh man, yeah. I would say what we're really like tilling the soil in right now as a family is just this concept of legacy. And so a life well lived would just be the opportunity to be surrounded by family, to see, whole, healthy, humans that just surround us, that people that we've poured in this, wisdom, as you call it, the Lord's wisdom, and just kind of, what we're saying, hey, this is how you could be pretty good at life, and we're trying to pass that down to our kids and have that be the anchor of their identity, and so to look back and then to see them continue that trend, to pass that down to their kids, and then to be able to sit back and see a room full of people that we've just infused with Christ-like culture, and to all be walking with the Lord and hearing from Him every day, and
so you're walking
following
out
His
Deuteronomy,
wisdom.
man. Just teach kids as you're at the dinner table, when you're on the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. I'm super curious about this as a father, even a husband as well. How do you bring this presence into your household? And how do you teach it to your kids?
Man, really bite-sized bits and pieces, I would say.
Because they're still little. How old are they?
Yeah, I've got a 6 and a soon-to-be 9-year-old.
That's at this point, and this kids pick up so fast.
Oh, for
yeah.
sure.
Telling
Yeah.
you, like my kids pick up so fast.
Hey, look, I totally bomb it on a regular basis. So I just want to
Hey, I'm right there with you, dude.
There's no halo here. I wanted to be very clear.
I can't imagine that happening, though.
No,
Oh, yeah.
absolutely not.
I would
Yeah.
actually like to know what that would look like.
Oh man, just call Carla. And, my wife will
Get it real quick.
every time I end up on the couch or something. But she's never literally put me on the couch.
I'm sure not,
but I've
yeah.
been close, I'm sure. And so man, I we have adopted a mission of just family first, and I thought I knew what family first was, but then when you really adopt this as like a mission in your home, you start to be challenged. Family first might mean sacrificing in other areas of your life, but to pour into what's most important now. I love my work. I love sewing into work as a ministry. I love the people I get to encounter. And for a long time, I created these goals of what does next year look like? How much should I be closing next year? Numbers and goals. And these are all healthy things. But when you make family first the culture in your home and you live by that culture, then you've got that's your compass. And so the way that I measure not just work, but everything else kind of operates out of that. So So, the way that we pour into our kids is typically, my wife is actually the primary source for this. Obviously, we homeschool, and so she's like super mom in every single way. She's always got something fun going on that
She
keeps her.
also may be one of the funniest people.
She
ever
she
created.
says she's the funny, I'm the money. That's how she differentiates us.
Totally hear her saying that.
So she really pours into our kids and works tirelessly and is a saint for doing that, because, as you know, that's a very much so a thankless job in many ways. And so, but she molds them and is really, getting the first hand at that. Now, but as a family, what we really enjoy are breakfast table conversations. And so every morning for the breakfast table, we just sit around and we have these concepts that we pour into our kids. And for example, this morning, we've got a box of questions. And so we pull the question of the day every morning. And this morning's question was, what is art? And, it's not some super spiritual question book. It's just something we got at the store one day. And so what is art? And so we just started talking about what is art. And we talked about how God is creative and we are created in his image, and you are made to be a creator. Everything you do is creative in nature. You can create. The enemy cannot create. What does that mean? So, you are made in the image and the likeness of God. And then, okay, well, art, God calls us each his masterpiece.
Yeah.
We are each wonderfully and masterfully made. And so you are God's masterful creation. You are his work of art. And then, well, what does that mean for other people? Well, that person, the reason we talk about honor and respect and dignity and loving and valuing other people is because they're also a work of art. And whether they realize it or not, maybe they don't. And so it's, our invitation is to call them and again, increase the dimmer on their light switch, and help them grow in that awareness of just being a better version of themselves in many ways. And so we do that with, 18-minute TED Talks around breakfast table. But my hope is that they stack up.
You're keeping them a long time.
Yeah. Well, I got to put a nice warm meal in front of them to
That's
exactly.
smart.
Get
Yeah.
food in front of them. Love that.
We used to do, my dad used to do every Sunday after church. We would have similar thing,
love
where
that.
he would just get the Bible out and just pick verses and read it. I don't think we appreciated it back then, but it's almost just the consistency, I think, too, of them seeing you being putting that first and making that a priority. I think it's even just the example. So no matter if they're getting all of that you're talking about, but I think it's just this is what we're doing, this is what we're choosing to focus on is important.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. That was actually Toby Harris. He's like, if you meet, you eat. So
Yeah.
I was like, this is important. We're going to
Say
talk
that.
about important things. So if we meet, we eat.
Yeah, I love that.
Keep an engaged audience
Yes.
that way.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
Well, staying true to the name Reverend Romes,
Oh, man.
and also going off this word inspired, what would be some inspirational words you would give to your fellow coworkers in closing?
Wow.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Love it.
Man, I love this community so much, and I would encourage us to love and value in deeper ways, and honestly, I would say that the biggest gift in being a part of a company like Movement is that we don't have to compartmentalize our lives. And so oftentimes we do. You have to show up at work and you're a certain person at work that you may not be at home, and you might be somebody else in this setting or that setting. And again, it comes back to that conversation of authenticity. You're going to be your best self when you are authentically showing up everywhere you go. And this is a place where you can show up and you don't have to hang your hat on the door that says, okay, well, this is, this is who I am at home or whoever, and you just become somebody else. And what I love about that is that you can come to this place with past hurts. You can come to this place with some broken things that need to be healed. You can come to this place with some challenges that need to be fixed. You can come. You just come as you are.
Yeah.
And there's been enough of us now, and I think what's been really great about having Stephen Phelan and how he tirelessly poured into our community, and then now seeing kind of this new wave of leaders rising up in both Jen, Borelli, and around the country, and the East Coast and West Coast, and you have this remnant of leaders that are just stepping it to the plate and really being that light for other people. Because my hope is that when they come here, they would leave changed. And it's an open door policy.
Yeah.
We're not here to trap people, but we're here to say that while you're here, I'm going to believe in your success here, and I may even believe in it more than you will.
Yeah.
But I believe in your success here. I'm gonna give you all the tools, resources for you to be successful, and I don't want you to leave here just as a better processor or a better financial analyst or a better loan officer.
Yeah.
I want you to leave here as a better human.
Yes.
And the way to do that is to be in community, get plugged in, and movement mentoring. You guys lead the charge on the prayer calls on Monday mornings, movement mentoring groups. Get around people who want to see you become the best you can be. And that's worth being inspired about, I think.
I love it. There you go, Reverend Romes, man. Well, I appreciate you joining this conversation. Seriously, had a wonderful time, man. I feel like we could keep going, but
I know.
appreciate you, man.
Love you guys. Thank you for all you're doing.
Yeah, man. All right, y'all. We'll catch you next time.
Bye, guys.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you have any questions, please email us at thedeependwithdaveandjen@gmail.com. We'll see you back soon for the next episode of The Deep End.